Thank you all for coming. I'm a little bit scared. I mean, this is my first time at a DevOps conference. As mostly speak at like front-end conferences. Like they are front-end developers are easy to guide. Yeah, right. So I'll try my best to give you show you how you can write GitHub actions. And I mean, what is GitHub Actions, right? I mean, I'm sure most of you have written GitHub Action because this is a DevOps conference, but just to know, how many of you have already written GitHub Actions? Can I see some hands? Okay, and cool. Okay, so the others who have never written a GitHub Actions, just don't throw any stuff at me after like the talk because YAML is hard, right? I know YAML is yeah. You have to like always work on your YAML files, and then again actions are something which you have to go over multiple times. You cannot get it like perfect at the first go. That's something which we have to understand. Yeah, but let's start. So GitHub Action Simplified. So what I'm trying to do in this talk is I'm going to simplify the way or to make you understand what GitHub Actions are, and I'll show you some demos as well, some GitHub Actions which I have already prepared because of course I'll not get that much time. And you know YAMLs, right? It's hard to write. I mean, it always there will be some formatting errors, so I don't want to do it live. So I already have some GitHub Actions. I'll show you how you can run it. And yeah, so let's go and do that. Before I do that, of course, let's little bit about me. So I work as senior software engineer. So I call myself as traveling senior software engineer at Ceylon is because I just keep traveling. So and I mostly work on the platform in platform part. So we have our monorepo, and we have been using Angular. So uh, if you want to know about monorepo, I have another talk at 2:50. So if you're interested, do join that. I mean, I'll also talk about how you can improve your build times there by using a tool. I'm a GD for Angular and NX champion. NX is the build tool which which I'm going to talk at the next talk. I am a GitHub star. I'm also an Auth0 ambassador. And in case you are interested in any of these programs like GD or GitHub star or what NX champions program is, just catch me outside and then we can talk about it. It's all based on the open source contributions. So it's nothing like, it's not private programs, so it's based on the contribution which you make to the community. Of course, I mean, GitHub is one of the leading companies when it comes to the open source. I'm also a co-founder for a community which I run with my co-founder Lars, who is from Denmark, and he's also my fellow NX champion and GitHub star as well. And as part of this community, we run multiple things. For example, we have podcasts, we have our own publications on dev.to called This is Learning and This is Angular. We both are Angular developers, so we have special love for Angular and we kept it separate. And in case you want to become part of this community, you are welcome. And we also run the podcast called This is Tech Talks. We have not done any episode so far, but we'll start again in next month. So in case any one of you in future is interested to come and join us as a guest, this is where you can reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Santosh Dev. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course I have some GitHub repositories. So of course this GitHub repository is also available on GitHub, so you can also see all the workflows which I have already written. So let's answer the biggest question: what is GitHub Actions, right? So build tool to automate your workflows, and everyone knows this. I mean, this is not something which you're not aware of, but what workflows are, and then we'll go through how you can actually relate this to your development workflow, because I'm here to simplify this build tool for developers. By the way, how many of you are front-end developers? Any? Okay, only one. Oh, okay, great. But yeah, I mean, in case my next talk is at 2:50, and then it's open for everyone. It's not only for front-end developers, just let me tell you. So, but what else GitHub Actions can do for you? You know, when you work on GitHub as a tool, right? So you have multiple events. So whatever you do is actually an event. You push, you pull, you create an issue, you close an issue. All these are actually events. So GitHub has events for everything. You can automate your workflows based on those events. It can be anything. I'm just telling like in entire GitHub operations or the actions you perform, those are available as actions. And based on those actions, you can write your own workflow, right? You can automate things. We'll see some of it, and then I'll share the link where you can see all the actions because there are so many, so many. But to run those actions, you need machines. So GitHub Actions supports all the major OS right now, Mac, Windows, and Linux. Linux is mostly used because, of course, it's free for open source, right? So if you're an open source developer or you just want to explore how GitHub Actions work, I'll suggest go ahead and use Linux because, of course, it's cheap as well. Then what? It supports metrics. How many of you know metrics? Not the movie. Okay, maths. So I think matrix was one of the reason I completed my engineering because I was so bad at maths, and the matrix was only thing which I could understand. So here I am, an engineer, and then you can write your own custom actions. Of course, as a developer, we like to use, but we also like to like write our own custom things, right? So I'm sure everyone does, and we are so big fan that we keep writing some tools for us. But what in case you can actually convert those tools to an action? You can do that. I mean, you can write your own action and just publish it and then let the world use it. Just make sure it's not you're not hacking anyone's machine, right? By writing those workflows. So let me just tell you the developer workflow, which we probably do daily, right? Whenever you join a new company or whenever you start a new project, this is what you do. You check out the code. I mean, of course, you do the onboarding first, right? Or let's say if you're doing open source. So what you do first step is you already have a machine, of course, right? Everyone has a machine. Then you check out your code. Then what you do? You set up your package manager, your tools, whatever you need. So let's say I'm a front-end developer, so I'll go ahead and install npm, node, npm or yarn, whatever I need. And if you're .NET developer, you will probably go for NuGet. Or if you are Java developer, okay, you're a Java developer, so you will go for Gradle or Maven, right? I'm sure those are the tools which people still use, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I have done like Java like 5 years back, so. And then what you do after that, you figured out, okay, this is the package manager I'm going to use. You install dependencies, right? You need to run those projects, so you install dependencies. In Node, we do npm install, yeah, or yarn install or pnp. Okay, pnpm. Sorry. Then what you do? You make changes. You make changes to your code. You add some features, and then you run your. This is what I'll call as tasks, right? You run your tasks. So you will build your application. You will see if build succeeded. You will run your test. Hopefully, like if you are writing your test, right? I mean, okay, not many developers like to write tests, but yeah, let's say if you have test and you have linters, you will run all the tests, all the tasks. And then what you do? You raise the pull request. You merge your changes. Then you deploy your changes probably on some environment, development or whatever you call pre-prod, staging. So the first environment is, of course, most of the time is development environment, right? So you deploy your changes, then your changes are tested by QA. It can be automated or it can be manual, right? So whatever ways. And they, let's say, approve your changes, then says, hey, everything looks good. Let's go live. Let's convert this to a workflow view, right? So the steps we saw, let's convert them to a workflow view. How it looks like. So we check out the code, we set up the package manager, we install dependencies, we make code changes, run tasks, and then merge code. Now let's see the workflow for this in GitHub Actions. So this is, let me just zoom in. So when you have to write your GitHub Actions, the first step you have to do is, it doesn't matter what kind of repository you have to create a folder called .github. So you can see this folder .github. This is where you will keep all the workflow files, all the GitHub Actions files, because GitHub Actions are actually going to read from here. Then you create a folder called workflows. This is where your workflow files are. and then you have actions, which we'll talk about later. But let's see workflows, and then you can create a file with a name .yaml, right? Everybody loves YAML. So yeah, here we are writing YAMLs again. So the first thing which you do in your YAML file is and which is the hardest thing, naming things, right? So the first and the most important task is write the name of what you're going to do here. So I'm saying this is my build workflow. So this is the first thing which I've done. And believe me, this is not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is getting the formatting right for your YAML files. Then what you do is, as I said, what GitHub Actions it runs on based on some events. So you define the events. So on which event I want to run this workflow. So yep. So it's on. So we are saying, okay, on this event I want to run this GitHub action. So right now I'm just like taking the most common ones, which is push and pull request. So I'm saying, okay, when I push some code to my branch called main, run this GitHub action. Or if I raise a pull request against a branch called main, run this pull request. Once we have defined our events, the next step is to define the jobs. These jobs are actually the task which we said, right? I mean, we said, okay, we'll go ahead and check out the code. We'll go ahead and install the package manager. We'll go ahead and run all the tasks which is needed, and then we'll say, okay, this is succeeded. So let's see. So we are saying, okay, this is my job, and my job name is build. You can name it whatever you like. So I can say build run test. Then you have to define a machine where your workflow will run. Of course, it has to be some machine, right? I mean, it's on cloud, but it's someone's machine. It's like, in this case, it's given to you by GitHub, right? So you have the machine. As I said, it supports all the major OS. Right now, I'm just using Ubuntu because this is the cheapest one. And mostly for open source, I think Ubuntu is the best one because you can run any type of code on Ubuntu. So I'm saying, okay, runs on Ubuntu latest. So go ahead and give me the Ubuntu machine with the latest OS. Always, like, you can also define which version you want, but it's always good to have the latest machine so you have all the patches right. Then you have to define your steps. Let's go, let's try to reconnect this to our workflow. So we said, okay, first thing which we are going to do is check out the code. So it says uses actions / checkout. So GitHub action already has created some actions for you. This is by default enabled for every enterprise to use. So if you're on enterprises, you cannot probably, as per your policy, you cannot use all the actions which are available. I'll show you how you can use the actions which are available in open, but these are like actions which are provided by GitHub itself. So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and use this action and check out my code. And then I'm saying, okay, go ahead and, now I have checked out the code, go ahead and set up the npm for me. So I'm saying setup node. You have set up NuGet, you have set up whatever tool you are using, whatever package manager you are using, you can go ahead and use it. It's available for almost all the package managers which exist, and it's already created for you. So you don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to write your custom scripts. It's already available. You just need to figure out which one you want to use. I'm saying use version 16 for Node and try to cache the npm. This will never cache node modules. Remember this. When I'm saying cache npm, this will just cache the npm version, not the node modules. In case you are like using NuGet, probably you will have different folder for that. So if you want to cache those, there are different strategies. There are different workflows for that. You can, I think, refer the GitHub documentation. You will figure out. Okay, you will find there. Then I'm saying, okay, now I have my machine, I have my node version installed, I have the npm configured for me. The next thing is I have to run some tasks, which is build. So first task is build, and sorry, not the first. Sorry, I got the node. Now I have to install the dependencies, right? So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and run npm CI, right? CI is for clean install. In case you are wondering what CI is, it's clean install. So it installs the npm packages, like fresh npm packages for me. So in case you are using NuGet, Gradle, whatever, you can define, okay, what you want to run next, what you want to run to install your dependencies. And then finally I'm saying, okay, go ahead and run build. You can add here, you can say, okay, name, run test, and then run npm run test in case you have test. So let's go ahead and see how we can execute this. So what I will do is I will just format this file first, right? Just to make sure I'm not breaking anything, because as I said, this is like so bad. So let me just undo changes and let's push something, right? We are saying, okay, I can run this GitHub action when I push something to main or when I raise a pull request. Let's push something to this. Fn allow empty run workflow, and this is checked out, checked in. Let's push the code. Okay, so my code is pushed. Let's go to, okay, this is what I did. Yeah. So hopes it's visible. Yeah, it's visible. So you can see I have actually multiple workflows right now based on the push action. So it started running the code, but it started running the workflow, but the workflow we are interested in is this. So it says, okay, this task is running right now. So you can see it says, okay, set up npm, it will install node, it will run build, and it will finally complete. And yes, it will tell you everything is green. Now you can go ahead and run your next workflow. So as per development workflow we saw, the next workflow is approving something. You need some approvals, right? So in this case, you need to interact with GitHub action. You need to come manually say, yes, go ahead and run this task. So let's see that workflow. So the same, right? So right now, again, I'm just using another event. It says workflow dispatch. So workflow dispatch is kind of like providing an UI on your GitHub action where you can say and where you can go and input something, right? So in case you want your workflows to run manually based on the user interaction, where you accept some input from the developers, or let's say you provide this action to anyone. You have product team and you tell them, okay, when everything is ready, you can just go ahead and say approved, and the code is deployed to production. You can give it to anyone. So, but to accept these inputs, you have to use an event called workflow dispatch where you can define your inputs. I'm saying the input is name, and I'm saying this is the description. So name of the person approving deployment, and then I'm passing the default, that's release manager. You can enter anything you like. For approval, you need to define the environments. So let's see where to define environments. So I can go to settings. So you can go to your settings. It's based on your repository. Go to environments, and you can create a new environment here. And you can say, okay, this is pre-prod. And then you can set some protection rules. You don't want everyone to go ahead and approve this, right? I mean, you want the people who are responsible for this environment to come and say, okay, this is approved. You can add required reviewers. So you can add up to 6. It's better if you do teams, right? So don't add individual approvers. I mean, you can create a team and then you can add a team. So here, of course, I'll just add myself because I own this repository, right? And then you can say, okay, save production rules. And let's go back. And you can also set for which branch. So let's say in case you have feature branch deployment, you can actually select that, okay, you want to keep it for all branches, but if you want to deploy only from main master, you can select the branch as well. So right now I'm saying, okay, it's okay, don't care about it, because anyways I have another environment configured, which is called staging. Once you define this environment, you have to use this in your workflow file. So here you can say environment. So I'm saying staging. So okay, go ahead and like take the staging approval before running any task after this. Otherwise, don't run it. So I'm again setting up, okay, runs on Ubuntu, and then I'm saying, I'm just like doing some console.log. So I'm saying, okay, this deployment is approved by this guy, this person. Let's go ahead and run it. So on GitHub Actions, you can go to Actions tab, and you will see all the workflow files which you have written on the left hand side. Sorry, right hand side. Left for you, right? Let's see. So where is that? Deployment workflow. Here, if you see, now I have an option. There is a text box available. You can accept inputs. You can accept inputs, and then you can say, okay, this is really approved by, or sorry, yeah, right? So I am just entered that, okay, this is approved by this guy, but of course you have to manually approve, right? And you will get an email. So I can show you. Let's see. Okay, I'm not logged in, but I can on my personal email. So let's say, if of course, what in case the person who is responsible is traveling. So you will get a mail like this, which says, okay, you have to review the pending deployments, and you can click here, and then it redirects you back to the action again, or the workflow again, where you can go ahead and say approved. And let's go. I mean, we already are here, so. And then here I can say review deployments, and then I can select which environment. So I'm saying staging, leave a comment. This let's write the standard message which developers loves to write. What's that magical word? Okay, looks good to me. Approve and deploy. And then you can see, of course, now it will start running the next task. So it will go ahead and take the machine, it will run your build, test, whatever you have defined, and it completes the job. I mean, this is yeah. So let's go back to the interesting part. Let's go back to the slides. So okay, this was the another workflow for deployment, right? Now we also saw this one, but we also saw how to run actions manually. So just to reiterate, what you do is you choose a event called workflow dispatch. You define your inputs, and then anyone can go ahead and run the actions manually. I mean, not anyone, someone who has the access. Okay, so if anyone can run it, then of course it's very dangerous. And this is also useful in case, let's say, you want to run something manually. For example, your releases. I mean, most of the companies still rely on like approval from some teams to do the deployments, right? In that case, what you can do is you can have your release team. You can just give this workflow to your release team and say, hey, whenever you get an sign off from everyone, just go ahead and run this run this action. Because your product team doesn't need to know anything about how things work. They just need to click a button. That's what they do, right? No offense. No, if you're product owner here, so no offense, but that's what they love to do, right? So we saw an workflow for doing exactly this thing. We saw how to do a release. But what about reusing workflows? Developers love to reuse things, right? Even though it is available, we will just spend like 10 hours trying to write our reusable things again, right? That's what we do. So let's see how we can actually write our own reusable workflow, and how it is a little bit different. So again, our favorite YAML file, right? So I created a new YAML file called reusable. You can name it whatever you want. The only thing is it's a reusable workflow. So you have to keep this file inside your workflows folder. Remember, you cannot keep it anywhere else. It has to be in your workflows folder. Now, this is reusable, right? So you have to, of course, pass some input. We saw workflow dispatch, but workflow dispatch works in a way where you can go to GitHub action, input or pass all the inputs, and then run it. When I talk about reusable workflows, this reusable workflows can be used inside another workflows. Why you want to do that? Let's say you have workflow for feature deployment. You have workflow for prod deployment. Most of the steps will be same, right? And you don't want to actually just reinvent the wheel, write it again and again. So what you can do is you can put the common logic inside this inside your reusable workflow, but it needs an event. What's the event? So in this case, the event name is workflow call. So it is saying this will be called from another workflow. This is what it means, workflow call. And then you will define your inputs. This is what you can see. So we have workflow name, whether I want to run build, whether I want to run test, for which projects I want to run this. You can also do that. So I'll show you an interesting stuff. Remember I said metrics? You can do metrics as well. Let's see how. So we are again defining our jobs. We are saying, okay, run this build, it runs on some machine. And to define your metrics, this is what you can do. You can say strategy, you can pass metrics, you can pass your metrics or input properties, which will be responsible for creating your metrics. So you know how metrics works, right? So here node has two values, 16 and 18. So this workflow will run for node 16, node 18, and the number of projects we have. So if I pass 4 projects, so 4 into 2, 8 combinations will run on my workflow. If right now I have just 2 projects, so it will run in 2 into 2, 4 different combinations, and they all will run parallelly. Sounds good, right? I mean, parallel, we are like running jobs parallelly, but it costs money. So be aware that if you run this, you will pay more, because it has to run on the multiple machines, so it will cost you more. So of course it sounds good. Yeah, we have metrics, we can run parallel tasks, we can like distribute projects onto separate machines, but it costs money. And so make sure that in case you know what you're doing, then you are doing this metrics one. So let's see the workflow. The first step we are doing is, again, we are saying, okay, check out the code, set up Node.js, but now I have the Node.js version as part of my input, right, as part of my metrics. So you can access that by using these two combination, these keys, metrics plus this, the input name. So here you can put the node version which I want to use is metrics.node. Same for projects. You can see here I'm saying, okay, npm run build projects and my project. The project comes from metrics.projects. So this is the combination which we'll always use. And let's see how we are using this. So of course you can also make one more thing here. If you want to run this manually, you can also use workflow dispatch on top of it. So you can also say, okay, define the same variables with workflow dispatch and you will be able to run it manually. So this is what reusable actions offers to you. But let's see how to use it inside the workflow. You see, you have removed all the complexity from this workflow. You are just putting that, okay, I want to run this workflow, reusable.yml, with this projects and with test false. So it should not run test. So let's say I have probably feature branch where I want to run test, but on master I don't want to run test because it already ran on my feature branch, right? You can do that. You can actually change the inputs. So as I already pushed a code, we already did this, right? We already executed this action. So let's go ahead and see that. Go to action and use reusable workflow, run workflow, and let's see. So here you see all those 4 combinations. So it says 16.x with router app, 16.x with the another project, again for 18 router harness. So this is really useful. Let's say you are using some package manager, right? And there is a new version and you want to test it whether your workflow still works with the new package manager version. What you can do is probably just pass like 18 or new, if in case you have a new version of NuGet, just pass that version and then you can just rerun the workflow and see if everything works fine. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to create a new workflow for doing anything. And you also maintain the backward compatibility. In case you are an open source developer, you can pass like, okay, if I'm still supporting 14, 16 and 18 node version, I can pass all these 3 and verify my workflow that if this is still backward compatible or not. So this is reusable workflow. Let's go back again to the slides. But you can also use actions which is already written by all the developers in the world. You can go to GitHub Marketplace. Let's see how Marketplace looks like. So this is GitHub marketplace, sorry. And you can go ahead and search for anything. For, let's say, if I'm automating something related to Google Cloud, right? Let's go. You get all the apps, all the actions available here. So let's say if I want to do authentication using Google Cloud, I can go ahead and say, okay, let's see this action. This is already written by Google itself, right? So always check this. Of course, we all do, right? Whenever we want to use something from another person's code, we always see if this is verified. So always see if this is verified, right? So you don't have any harm running this action on your infra, because everything will be running on inside your, of course, inside your environment. Someone can steal the code as well. So yeah, so here you can see how to use this action. So the usage is available here. You can just copy this code and put it in your workflow file, and everything works, right? So you don't have to reinvent wheel. Just go ahead and see if you are using any cloud provider or you are using any provider. Most of them already has an action. There are actions for everything. I mean, any third-party vendor you are interacting with, they already have an action. If they don't, then it's okay. They're just missing a new customer, right? Because most of the teams we know, or the enterprises we know, are actually using GitHub Actions, and then it's very famous in open source as well. Open source developers loves GitHub Actions. Okay, so this is how you can do this. What about writing your own custom actions? How you can do that? So there are three ways actually. First is Docker container, which is the most secure one, most reliable one, because you already have everything you need to run inside your container. But I'm not going to show any example of this, unfortunately. And one thing, Docker containers can only run on Ubuntu, so they don't support Windows and Mac. So in case you're trying to use this, so just keep this in your mind. You can write your own custom actions using JavaScript. I'll show an example. I think I still have some time here. And then you can write your composite actions. So let's see an example of composite action. This is something which I already have available. So to write a composite action, the first thing which you have to do is you have to define a actions folder. And composite actions are still reusable, but within your enterprise, within your own GitHub organization. So I can reuse this action anywhere else in another repository as well. So that's possible. You have to just give a path like your repository name, your organization name, repository name, and then path to the action. But what is composite action, right? So composite action allows you to write an action which is independent of on which environment it is running. Then it's custom, right? I mean, if I have to just write an action which only runs Ubuntu or runs on Ubuntu, is that a custom action? Yes, it is, but it only supports one environment, right? So if you see this code, there is one thing which is missing. Runs on. It doesn't have any environment, so it never knows where it is running. So it is something which we have to define. We as a developer who is consuming this action. So what you can do, the way to use composite actions are, first you have to go to create an actions folder, name anything. I mean, right now I'm saying common steps, and then I'm saying action.yml. So to reuse or to use this action in my workflows, I have to of course go ahead and give this path, actions/common steps. I don't have to do actions/action.yml. I have to just say actions/common steps. But here, if you see, the steps are set up Node.js, check out your dependencies, again the same task which we ran before, and then we are saying okay, npm install. If we can also like do cache check here. So if I want to actually restore my cache for node modules, I can do this here. So I already have an example in case you want to refer for node modules, but the examples are available on GitHub documents as well. And then of course I want to run my code, run my task. So I'm saying okay, just go ahead and run build. I'm saying run it on shell, run test, run it on shell. But when you write composite action, you also get an advantage. Let me show you what. Let's go back to our actions. First let me show you how to use it. So use composite action, composite workflow. So same way, right? We just did this. I mean, we said, okay, uses for reusable workflows as well. Nothing changes there. You can pass input as well. So you can accept input here. That's fine. But what is the main difference? Let's go back and see our action here and composite workflow. Of course, it failed because my test failed, which of course, like, I'm not good at writing tests, as I said. I mean, I'm from the same gang of developers who probably are not good at writing tests. Can you see something else? Can you see some difference from the earlier workflow? Of course, the log is very huge. We can all see that. But let me compare this to another action which we wrote, probably build workflow. I'll take this one. So if you see this, I mean, all the tasks are running separately and they need to create their own shell instance. So of course they run somewhere, right? You take a machine, you run it on shell or let's say sh, whatever you are using. So it accepts multiple type of shells. So you can provide, let's say, bash, pws, PowerShell, sh, and most common is bash. You can also use Python as well if you want to use it. So what it does, the composite workflow, what it will do is it will merge all these tasks into a single shell. So it reduces the time also, because if you run it on a separate instances, of course there will be some time taken to initialize those instances, initialize those shell instances for you. By using composite action, you can just run in a single shell and you can see all the tasks like in a single log. So you don't have to, you save some time basically. So that's what composite workflows are. I think I still have 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, then I'll quickly go to the last one, which is the JavaScript action. So in case you want to author your own action, there are a few steps which you have to follow. First is, okay, thank you. So of course you have to choose language, whether you want to write it in JavaScript or TypeScript, because it supports both. I mean, and most of the developers we know, they love TypeScript. So of course you can go ahead and choose TypeScript for this. And there is a repository, there is a template. So you don't have to like reinvent the wheel again. GitHub Action has already taken care of you. They have a repository, I'll share the link. Next step you have to do is create a metadata file. Metadata file will have information about your action and then publish your action. So let's see metadata file. This is how your metadata files looks like. You have to keep this into your root. So this should be available in your root folder. So GitHub can read this and give you an option to publish this to marketplace. So all the information is here. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, this is name, this is description, and then I'm saying this will be my inputs. So feed URL will be my input. This is a simple action which I have written to retrieve the RSS feed. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, this is feed URL, this is required, and the default value is of course my blog. So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and retrieve the feeds from here. And then output can be feeds, right? The feeds you get, and then okay, feeds a string, and it runs on this machine. And this is my main file, because I said we'll be writing JavaScript, right? JavaScript or TypeScript. So this is the main entry file which needs to be executed when you run your workflow. So let's see how you will write it. You can create a TypeScript file, right? And then you can say, okay, if you see this code, I mean, I'm not doing anything magical here. I'm just taking the input. So I'm saying, okay, this package is available from Actions, GitHub Actions, called core, which has everything you need to write your own custom action. So I'm saying, okay, just go ahead and take the input which you can enter when you are using this workflow. And then I'm just logging something. I'm saying, okay, fetching the data from this URL, and then there is a timestamp, and then I'm saying, okay, just go ahead and read the response, and you can do core.set output, your output property and value. That's it. This is the simplest workflow, right? And then in case there are any exceptions, just throw the exception and then say core.set failed and your message. And then finally you have to run this. Let's see how to use it. So before you can use it, you have to build it. So this is the build tasks, or you can say build script. So first I'm running TSC because I'm using TypeScript. And then I'm saying, okay, ncc build. ncc is a package from Vercel. I'm sure everyone knows Vercel, right? So what ncc does is it will compile all the files and put it in a single output file. So that's what it does. Nothing magical again here. And then I push my code, update the build, and this is how you use it. So again, just ignore the first part, right? So to test it, you have to just do this feed URL uses with dot slash, because I'm testing it, right? Because before we publish anything, I hope everyone tests that. So this is to test your workflow. So let me show you the example. I still have a few minutes left, so I'll go to my repositories, and this is the action stem. And let's see my action, and which is build test. And the last one was here, update node. So if you see this workflow, of course it does the build, and then it is testing as well. So the interesting part is this one, because this is where we are testing our workflow. And of course there are a lot of information, because this runs in a debug mode. So it gives all the logs which are needed, like to you as a developer to debug what is happening inside my action. And then we are saying, okay, fetching data from this. And if you see this is your own, this is your RSS feed. This is your RSS feed, and then you can make this action reusable. You can say, okay, hey, if you want to fetch your RSS feed, I have an action for you. How? So let's go back to the repository. Remember the metadata file which we created? GitHub Actions can read that. So it says publish this action to marketplace, and you can say, okay, create a new release, and of course you have to provide some names or provide everything, and then just publish it. Choose a tag, and then it is available for everyone to reuse. I mean, you can put any logic, because of course we love to build tools, right? And then you can write all the code here, publish it as a GitHub action, and then your teams can use it. I mean, if you have your own organization, you can also publish it inside your organization, and everyone can use it. I'll show you a few minutes left, so I'll show you one more thing, which is scheduling an action. Of course, who doesn't love cron jobs? We all love cron jobs, right? If you want to write your own cron job, you can do that using GitHub action as well. The only thing is the event is called schedule, and then you have to provide cron with some input values. So you can say minute, hour. So first value is minute and hour. So it runs at 00 UTC. I mean, universal time. So 12 a.m. in the night, right? That's what we are saying here. And then you can pass rest of the 3 parameters as day of month, and the last one is day of the week. And it will run nightly. So this is my nightly build. So if I go back and see my actions, let's go to repository, outer app. So if you want to schedule nightly builds, nightly tests, you can do that, and using this one. So of course, again, my test failed because I'm bad at writing tests. And yeah, this is it. So it runs every night at 12. You can see from the logs as well. So I think it should be here. Oops, sorry. Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, I can go to GitHub Actions, nightly, and then you can see it train actually 12 every night. You can also disable your workflows. Remember this, because GitHub Actions are costly, right? I mean, if you are running it let's say if you have an action which goes into infinite loop, you pay a lot of money. Just disable the workflow in case you want to. Don't delete your workflow file. So in case some workflow goes wrong, just disable it so you can revisit it. If you delete it, I mean, of course, you can get it from your commit history, but you don't have to do it. You can just disable the workflow from here. So this is the nightly workflow. And in case you want to see this action demo, you have this is the code repository. If you want to scan it, otherwise I will share it on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can take it from there as well. This is TypeScript template. In case you are interested, like to write your own action, you can take this TypeScript template, write your own custom logic, provide your input and output, and share it with the world. Don't be scared. I mean, of course, no one is scared in, I think, Node.js world, because we have 1 million packages on npm, right? Everyone just keeps publishing everything on npm. And then to see the code repositories where actions are used, all those composite actions. This is the, I mean, I'll share it again. I know you you don't want to scan so much QR codes. And finally, just for front-end developers, or you are interested in learning Angular, I have a course on Free Code Camp YouTube channel. This is like 17 hours course, has more than 700k views so far. So if you're someone is interested in your team to learn Angular, please share this with them. And these are some links. Again, I'll share this on Twitter and I'll share with the team so they can share it with you. And finally, yeah, thank you.